studies. So therefore, there are a lot of information associated with RamSetu. As you know, there is a long, narrow strip between Dhanushkoti and the Mannar Island that is known as RamSetu. To the north of it, there is a Park Bay and the Park Strait, and to the south of it is the Gulf of Mannar. So this structure, which is around 30 kilometers in length, it divides these two water bodies, and nature of these is very different. So it works as a barrier, and this structure has been known by various names such as RamSetu, Ramar Palan. It's also called Setu. It is also called Adi Setu, Nal Setu, because it is believed to be constructed by Nal. It is also called Setu Tirth, Setu Mandir, Setu Bandh, and Ram Tirth in ancient literature and in inscriptions. And the antiquity of RamSetu is undisputed for at least last 2000 years. There are two groups of people, two schools. One believes that RamSetu is a myth and there is nothing historical about it. On the other hand, there is one group which believes that it's a reality and they date it differently, right from 7 lakh years old till several thousands of years old. There is no one opinion about it. I'm going to talk as an archaeologist about the archaeological references, literary references, which talks about RamSetu and give us information, continuous information almost, during last 2000 years. So this island, this structure between Pamban Island and Talai Mannar has got a unique curvature. And people, some say it's a geological formation, it's a natural, whereas some believes that, as it is written in ancient literature, that it was constructed by the military of Ram when he crossed the sea to Lanka. So it's a chain of limestone shoals, and these shoals are of different shapes and sizes, and there is a gap in between. And since their upper portions are unconsolidated, because of the current and water activities, their shapes keep changing. There have also been scientific studies by scientists and geologists, and when the coring was done by the geologists of National Institute of Ocean Technology, they found that there are rolled coral between the sandy layers and the silty clay sequences. That suggests that there is some activity, sort of a human activity, where these corals have got deposited between different layers. But there is no unanimity on that. Some believe that that's not the case and they may be the natural formation. When we talk about archaeological remains, we have a number of ancient inscriptions. We have several epigraphs, ancient coins, sculptures and paintings. And when we talk about literary sources, they are both religious and secular text. There are old maps mentioning about RamSetu. There are official reports, even during the British period, which mention there are table records, which gives a lot of information about the antiquity of this structure. Let's just, in very brief, when we say, those who are in the southern part of the country know it very well, but those who are from other part of the country and other places, for them, just let me mention briefly the location of this area. The Pamban Island is connected through the Mandapam area on the coast of Tamil Nadu, and one part of this stretches a long stretch towards the southeast, that is called Dhanushkoti, from where this structure of RamSetu starts, and it goes towards the Mannar Island in Sri Lanka. And this area is very vulnerable. It has a lot of cyclones. It witnessed regular cyclones. And very recently, in 1956, there was a severe cyclone which has caused great devastation, and a part of that area was reclaimed by the sea. To the north of it is a Park Strait, as I have already mentioned, which is around 53 to 82 kilometer wide strait between the coast of Tamil Nadu and Mannar district of Sri Lanka, and it connects Park Bay with the Bay of Bengal. And to the south of it is the Gulf of Mannar, that is 10,500 kilometer shallow bay, which is surrounded by southeastern coast of India, Pamban Island, RamSetu Island, and the western coast of Sri Lanka, and it opens to Indian Ocean. So these two areas are opening in opposite directions. The sea level, as you know, has been fluctuating through the ages. Few studies which have been done in this area suggest that around 18,000 years before present, during the recent ice age in late Pleistocene, the sea level was around 130 meters below than the present. And that time, the Sri Lanka island and India would have been they were connected because the sea level was so low. Around 7,300 years before present, there was sudden rise in the sea level, and it rose to around 3.5 to 4 meter above the present day sea level. In the Rameshwaram Island, in Tuticorin area, and in Mandapam area, corals have been found on the land, and they have been dated to around 7,003 years before present. And existence of coral on the land very clearly suggests that when these corals were growing, the water was above them. So this area was under the water during around 7,300 years before. Then the level went down, and around 5,000 to 4,000 years before present, the level was around 1.5 meter above the present sea level. So what we see is the situation today. If you want to study it in the past, then we will have to see what was the sea level when we are talking about that period. So a serious studies about sea level change is also required in that area, so that we know that where the bridge would have been. Now, when we talk about a little about the marine environment and bathymetry of this area, because we have to this is much of this bridge is submerged underwater, and during the low tide, what you see is their tops or the sandy loose sediments of their uppermost portions, which are exposed during low tide. So this area, the continental shelf extends around 25 kilometers from the mainland, and the 20-meter depth contour extend to around 30 to 45 meters from the shore. And this shallow area has around 21 coral islands. These coral islands are scattered in this 20-meter contour area along the coast. And RamSetu act as a barrier between these two different water zones. And it is on a ridge which is around 1.6 to 4 kilometers in width. There have been different theories about its development or its formation. Some believes that this kind of linear upliftment might have been because of this submarine ridge, maybe a formation of a host, a linear block of rock mass rising between two parallel faults. We know there are fault lines in Tamil Nadu, but there is no fault line in the Bay of Bengal. So the question of its development does not arises. Linear development means linear submarine ridges may also be formed due to the series of coral islands. But we know the coral require a solid base, and corals are very sensitive to the environment, and they grow on a particular depth, and the main thing is they need a consolidated solid ground to grow. Of course, there are certain coral islands scattered in the area, but they are along the coast, not the transverse to the coast. And this structure is transverse to the coast, touching to the Sri Lanka. So therefore, this theory also doesn't support its natural growth. And coral grows in a particular depth, and when the water level changes, corals also goes ups and downs. Whereas that is not the case. The sea level has been fluctuating here in the past, several meters ups and several meters down. So then another thing is the sedimentation is also very important, because that's a very interesting phenomena. When the NERI studied this area, they found that a deposition is taking place here, and in between 1975 to 1909, there have been a deposit about 0.51 meter, around half a meter. The depth has been reduced around half a meter, and scientists believe that it is such a in this regime, sedimentation is so much that around after 500 years there will be a walkable land between these between the India and the Sri Lanka. So this is scientific study doesn't help us in establishing that this unique strip having a very typical curvature between India and Sri Lanka is naturally made. Let us also talk about a brief about its background. This has been in existence for last 2000 years, but few years back suddenly it came in limelight, and many people, environmentalists as well as those who were concerned with the cultural heritage, got activated. And the cause was the inauguration of Setu Samudram Canal project. On 2nd July 2005, then Prime Minister of India inaugurated Setu Samudram Canal project. And this project proposed to cut RamSetu to make a channel so that the ships which are coming from the south can go to north. Those who are coming from Tuticorin port can go to Madras port without encircling the entire Sri Lanka. So the idea was to make a channel to reduce the time of ships which are going all around Sri Lanka. And it would have, means if this channel would have cut, it would have reduced the journey of ships around 400 nautical miles, and this is a huge of 2000 crore, and it was made by Tuticorin Port Trust. So since millions of people are sentimentally attached with this structure because they believe it was constructed by Ram and it's a religious place for them. And not only that, the environmentalists who are particularly the marine environmentalists, they know that without studying this area, if this bridge is cursed, there are two different water regimes in the Park Strait and the Gulf of Mannar, and the water, if is allowed to go from here to there, it is going to cause a great devastation to marine life, and so they opposed it. But this was not the first attempt, or this was not a first thought to cut a channel and reduce this journey from south to north. A Portuguese, Dom Fernandes Correa, had also attempted to cut a channel, but not in RamSetu, but near the Pamban Passage. He wanted to deep it so that the boats can cross or the ships can cross from south to north. In 1860, British officer Editor had also proposed to cut a channel for faster navigation, but it could not be. It was not implemented. Since the independence, Nehru cabinet took a decision and took up the matter, and in 1955, government set up a committee to examine the feasibility of the project. And in 1956, A.R. Mudaliar committee clearly ruled out cutting this RamSetu area, but they suggested an alignment through Pamban area, and that was called the Alignment 1. And in 2001, several committees looked into this matter. They suggested several different channels, but suddenly in 2005, it was decided to have a 167 kilometer long canal which was running parallel to Indo-Australian line. It was the project, and it had a width of around 300 meter wide and 12 meter deep channel. It includes a lot of work in this area, and around 26 kilometers had to be dredged in this area, and some of the portion has the solid rocks, so there was possibility of doing the blast, which would have caused a great damage to culture as well as nature. There have been a number of cyclones in Syria, and we know that it was a very vulnerable area. Therefore, it was necessary to preserve it. And as per the NERI report, there was around 85 million cubic meters material would have to be dredged, and that was only for cutting the channel. And in subsequent years, to maintain the channel, there would have been regular dredging in the area. So that was a threat, and a legal battle started. In 2006, people opposed. They collected signature of around 35 lakh people. Then they moved to the local court. Then the case went to the Madras High Court, which asked Government of India to submit a report whether there are archaeological remains or not. The matter ultimately went to the Supreme Court. It was also demanded by that RamSetu area should be declared a protected monument of national importance. And when this court went to the Supreme Court, being the head of underwater archaeology wing, that time I was part of the Archaeological Survey of India. I was associated with this, and then we examined day-to-day development in the case, and we also prepared ourselves if we are asked to take archaeological investigation in the area to find out the antiquity of this through archaeological excavations or investigations. But the case is still sub judice. There were also matter was also raised in the in the Parliament time to time, and government admitted there that so far no archaeological investigations have been conducted in this area. So we can't say that whether it's a archaeological monument, it has archaeological remains or not. So officially, so far there have been no proper investigations in this area. But there have been certain studies. Let me just touch some of the previous studies that what work has been done in this area so far. They have been to study it through various sources, though they were not a very systematic. We know the satellite remote sensing is a very effective tool to study geological features or such features and other large structures which can be seen from there. And the few remote sensing scientists using the satellite imagery, though they did not do the ground work, and on the basis of satellite images in 2005 they predicted that there are a number of islets and it is made of corals. The Underwater Archaeology Center of Tamil University, which was working on the Pamban coast, they also had done some preliminary diving there, but they could not find something much and they could not draw any conclusion, but they said this area need proper investigation. When we talk about RamSetu and the places which are associated with Ramayana, there have been number of studies, particularly in around 60s, 70s, the number of scholars try to identify these places. Still, there are places which have the same name, what is mentioned in ancient literature, but there have been different opinion about their antiquity and identification. Persons like V.V. Mirashi demolished some of those ideas which people has proposed that these places are not what is known as today, but they were in some different parts or in different areas. But that debate continued and it was based more on the literatures and traditions. And persons like even Sankalia and others, Ramdas, etc., they wrote about Ram, Lanka, Maltina on the basis of tradition. So they were there and they did not draw any final conclusion. And people still believe that this place, which is close to the Rameshwaram, which is one of the Tirth, is associated with the Ram's journey to Sri Lanka. There has also been a project by the famous archaeologist V.V. Lal. He worked on a number of Ramayana sites in Ayodhya, Shrangverpur, Chitrakoot, Bharadwaj Ashram, and he got archaeological remains from this site. So that was also a work towards identification of sites which are mentioned in ancient literature, particularly in Ramayana. Now the question comes about the historicity of this. So what evidence do we have to prove that it has historical background? It's not only a belief, it's not only a myth. We know that for last 2000 years there are continuous mentions about it in literature, in inscriptions, through various sources we get information about it. So a number of literature mention about RamSetu in different way. Some refers it as a Tirth, some as a structure which is constructed, some in some other way as Mahatma, but in different way they mention it, and some of them are independent to each other. They give a different story. So it is not that only one idea was being continued by others. So there were different kind of beliefs and they have been recorded. And we get this information in Ramayana of Valmiki. We get even in Mahabharata mention of RamSetu and a number of Puranas, Smritis and literature like Raghuvansh of Kalidas, Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas, Adhyatma Ramayana, Ananda Ramayana, Kamb Ramayana, they are a few to name. There are a number of even poems and many other literature which mention about RamSetu. There are numerous references of RamSetu in Puran, particularly they tell about its importance, its significance, its mahatmya. Some Purans such as Agni Puran, Vishnu Puran, Skanda Puran specifically mention construction of the bridge by Ram to cross over the Lanka. Whereas some other Puran like Bhagavad Puran, Brahmanda Puran, Kurma Puran, Markandeya Puran and Shiv Puran mention it as a Tirth, as a sacred place, a place of pilgrimage. Among these, the Padma Puran is the only Puran which mention about the destruction of bridge by Ram himself while returning back to India on the request of Vibhishan. Agni Puran contains the story in chapter 9, and where it is said that Samudra himself told Ram that you can cross Samudra by constructing a bridge, and the Nal can construct the bridge. It is similar to what is mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. Fourth set of Vishnu Puran mention that Ram destroyed the Rakshasas by constructing the bridge over the ocean. Setu Mahatmya in the Brahmakhand of Skanda Puran speak about the importance of Setu Tirth, and it gives Katha of Setubandh. Padma Puran, which is the only one which mentioned that on the request of Vibhishan, Ram broke it, and one breach was 1/10 of its length and another one was the 1/100th of its length. So from two places it was broken and it was divided, means it got broke in three parts. Ramayana very meticulously mention about this bridge, how it was constructed, how much time it took. It mentions that it took 5 days to construct this bridge, and it also mentioned that how much time was taken to construct this every day by day, that it has given a different length. It mentioned the complete length of the Setu was 100 yojan. It also mentioned about how it was constructed, what was the kind of trees which were brought and thrown by the monkeys to construct the tree. It include Sal, Ashwakarna, Dhau, Venu, Kutaja, Arjun, Tal, Tilak, Timish, Bilva, Saptavarna, and the flowering trees like Anikaras, Ambu, Ashok. It also talks like Darim, Narikel, Katha, Bahedra, Mauli, Mokul, Khalim. So a variety of trees or variety of wood was used. The powerful giant warners brought big rocks and they threw in the water. And then what happened when they were throwing it? What kind of noise was being created? There was roars of that. They were very joyful, and not only that, they were using different kind of yantra. Might be some kind of devices even for rolling or throwing or carrying this kind of giant pieces. So this is how it was constructed. And then it mentioned that day by day, in 5 days, it was constructed. It was very meticulously planned and built. It had a smooth surface. It was straight. They were the measuring tape, means ropes they were holding. There were some supervisors who were supervising. There were some subordinates who were working. So it gives detailed picture of how it was constructed under the guidance of Nal, who is called to be the architect, and the military of army crossed through this bridge and reached to Sri Lanka. It is not only literature, we get coins, and these coins are called Setu type of coins. And they are not only in India. We find even on the other side in Sri Lanka, the Arya Chakravartin king of Jaffna, they issued Setu type coin where the Setu is written in Tamil. They are, in a general appearance, they look like the Chol copper coins, but there are different varieties. Setu type 1 coins were issued between 1284 to 1410 CE, and they have a Tamil legend, Setu, vertically written below the arms of the king. The Setu type 2 coins were issued between 1462 and 1572. Not only that, even in Indian side, we have Setupati coins issued by the Setupati kings of Ramnath, and they are also inscribed with Setupati. So the issuer of these coins were the guardian of this structure till very late period, and we have the written record of that. We know the art is said to be the mirror of the society, and you find in art many things, many contemporary events, many other popular things which are popular in the society, and we find that in art, sculptures, as well as in paintings, a number of depiction of construction of this bridge. We find depiction of Ramayana scenes right from the Gupta period. A number of art historians has written about it. Some of the beautiful scenes comes in terracotta art, and in a little later period, we find depiction of bridge. A number of places, a few to mention, Aihole, Pattatkal, a famous Rashtrakuta temple at Ellora. Not only in India, but even in the Southeast Asian countries, we find that this theme was popular, and they have depiction of scenes where the monkeys are shown constructing or helping in the construction of this bridge. The Pramban in Java in around 9th-10th century depiction, that is one very good example of it. The most important and most convincing evidence comes from the inscription. Inscriptions are supposed to be very convincing because you get the clear information, authentic information from the inscription. And from 9th to 10th, 16th century, there are a number of inscriptions which mention about RamSetu in different way. Sometimes it is associated with Ram, sometimes it is mentioned as a landmark. But it established one thing very clearly beyond doubt, that RamSetu was such a famous landmark that it was known not only in the only southern India, but right even up to the Rajasthan, or even in the central India, you find mention of RamSetu frequently, and it is as firm and well known as Himalaya in the north. And whenever they talk about Bharatvarsh, they say from Himalaya to RamSetu or Ram Tirth. Or when they talk about Chakravarti Kshetra, they say the Chakravarti Kshetra is between RamSetu and Himalaya. So it was so popular, well known, that it was considered one of the most significant landmarks in the south, as significant as Himalaya in the north. Earliest inscription which mentioned Setu Tirth is a copper plate inscription of Pallav king Aprati Varman. That is the earliest inscription we find. And the most detailed mention of the bridge is found in the famous copper plate of Tiruvang, Tiru, Tiruvalangadu copper plate of Rajendra Chola first, where he mentioned about his father Rajendra Chola. And here he compares Rajendra Chola with Ram, saying that Ram has constructed a bridge to cross the sea to reach Lanka, whereas my father reached using the ships, and he was more thus surpassing the Ram. And this is a long inscription published in the South Indian Inscription, Volume 3, Part 3, which gives a detailed description. It talks about Ram's construction. But we have numerous references of RamSetu as landmark. Whenever there is a mention of Chakravarti Kshetra, they call from Setu to Himalaya. And it is as grand as Himalaya in the north. They mention Himalayad Asamudram. And D.C. Sarkar, in his studies in geography of ancient and medieval India, has discussed this in length, and he has written about and quoting a number of references about it. Rajshekhar, in his Kavya Mimamsa, that is around 880 to 920, he writes about Chakravarti Kshetra, and he also mentioned the Ram Setu. Kautilya's Arthashastra also talks about Chakravarti Kshetra, and he says it should be above 1000 yojan and between Himalaya and the sea. So not only that, even the Rajshekhar in Kavya Mimamsa mentioned it. He talks about land measuring 1000 yojan and lying between Kumari Deep and Bindu Saras. Now here one thing can be mentioned when we talk about yojan. We know that 1 yojan comes around 12 kilometers. But when we are talking about 100 yojan or 1000 yojan, it does not mean exactly in that way. Here it denotes a long distance. It may not be exactly what is being said, but when it comes about the Shati Yojan or Shati Yojan, it means we are talking about some structure which is very long and it denotes the grand distance. So we have to take it in that form only. Not only that, even a literature like Ban's Kadambari of Ban, which is a historical source which is accepted by everyone, that describe the boundary of kingdom of Chandrapida, and it mentioned that is boundary extended from Gandhamadan in the north to Setubandh in the south. So in a numerous sources you find mention of RamSetu. King Devpala who ruled between 810 and 850, he mentioned his kingdom which was bounded by the source of Ganga in the north and Ramas breeze in the south. So that makes it very clear that different kings ruling in different part of the country in different periods RamSetu as a landmark to show their extension of their kingdoms in the south. Vigyaneshwari's Mithakshara also mentioned about it. It mentioned dominion of Vikramaditya VI, who ruled from 1076 to 1127, the late Chalukya king of Kalyan. He describes his kingdom from the Setu in the south and the Himalaya in the north. So that we have different references continuously. We have there is some technical problem perhaps. I hope you can listen me, if can't see at least. There are inscription of Vijayanagara king Veera Narasimha, who ruled from 1506 to 1509. He described having ruled over a kingdom which is bounded by Setu in the south and Sumeru in the north. It is published in the Mysore archaeological reports. There is also a boundary of kingdom of Krishna Dev Rai is also mentioned from Himachal in the north to Setu in the south. And more than that, the most interesting inscription which comes from Eklingi temple, that is in Rajasthan, this famous Nath Dwara temple. It is dated to Vikram Samvat 1028, that is 971 CE. It mentions about the sages who are living there, and it says that they were known in the entire Chakravarti Kshetra. Generally, it was the kings who were mentioning this region, but here they mention that the sages who are living here, they are so famous that their khyati has gone all over the country and the entire Bharat, from Setu in the south to Himalaya in the north. Now, when we have these all inscriptions, we have coins, we have literature, we have many other references, but the question remains there that what is there under the water? Because everybody wants to know, and the option is to conduct underwater archaeological studies. We have underwater archaeologists, we have know about technology. Underwater archaeological excavations have been conducted up to 55-meter depth in India, and average depth in RamSetu area is hardly 3 meter, which is very shallow, and it is not at all difficult to do systematic underwater archaeological studies there. And if proper systematic archaeological investigations are done there, it will be established without beyond any doubt that what is there. Are there evidence of human activity? Are there some construction activities or not? And if they are, what kind of construction was there? What kind of material might have been used? What was the size of it? And what was the technique of it? We have legal provisions under the archaeological laws. There are international instruments that can also be helpful in conducting such studies. We know because half of this portion is in Indian waters and half of the portion is in Sri Lankan water. So the UNESCO Convention of 2001 may be useful to have international collaboration in this field, and so that the work can be conducted on the entire stretch. Now I would like to show you some of the images. If you can see, this is the area. This is India, this side in the west, and Sri Lanka in the east. This is the Mannar region, and this is an island of Talai Mannar. This is Mandapam area, which is protruding inside the sea. And this white spot here, a small area, that is the Rameshwaram island. And between the Rameshwaram and the Talai Mannar, there is this structure we are talking about, RamSetu. To the north, this area is Park Bay and Park Strait, and to the south, this is the Gulf of Mannar. Here it is more clearer. So this is around 30-kilometer strip, which needs temperature, and you can see this is the shell, which is a little shallow water, and there are a number of islands along the coast. These are coral islands, but this is a portion which is called at RamSetu, half of which is in Indian waters and half of it in Sri Lankan waters. These are some of the names which I have already mentioned. I've also mentioned about its references in Ramayana, Puran, and number of other, even the secular literature, historical literature, inscription. Now, this is one of the most beautiful depictions of RamSetu, the famous temple at Pattatkal, Papa Temple. It has got three parts. In this portion, you can see the monkeys are carrying huge rocks over their head and very in a playful mood. They are happy, they are running, and the topmost trees has got their commanders or supervisors. In between, they have shown the sea. These waves are very loud, and this a parallel broad bridge has been constructed. Here you can see the marine life. They have shown the fish and other marine creatures in the sea. And one thing you may notice, so-called what we call the English bond. See, these blocks are fitted in such a way, and the monkeys opposite, and on the other side, when the Lankan side, very eagerly they are looking towards Lanka. And this is most elaborate, most beautiful depiction of RamSetu. There are others also at Ellora and Aihole, Durga temple, but they are not so large and so elaborate. This is a close-up view of that. You can see these 4 rows of monkeys carrying the big rocks to throw in the sea to construct the bridge. And these are the monkeys who have crossed the bridge and they have reached. The scene continues further. There are a number of other scenes from Ramayana, and this is the very pertinent scene when we talk about RamSetu. This is the depiction at Pramban in the Southeast Asia, where the monkeys are carrying the rocks, and you see these high waves of the sea to throw them in the sea to construct the bridge. Tradition was not popular only in India, but even beyond India. So wherever the tradition of Ramayana has gone, it was popular. Here I want to show you this Setu type of coins. There are variety of different type of Setu coins. I have got pictures which all are not here. So here the Setu is written below. There is a bull, and below that is written Setu in Tamil. And there are different varieties. There are different types of coins which have been issued in different periods. So between 13th and 17th century. Old maps, and the earliest one that is dated to 1747. It shows RamSetu. It is not very clear, and it is written here. So this was referred as Ram's Bridge or RamSetu. It was only in the 17th century, late 17th century, they also started calling it as Adam's Bridge, and that was a deliberate attempt to change its name. And see a number of reports, records, 19th century, 18th century, you find that it has been written clearly as Rama's Bridge by Sir William Jones in 1801. Not only that, even in one of the discourse they say that it is foolish to call it Adam's Bridge, it is Ram's Bridge, and it should be called as RamSetu. That is what it was being in one of the discourse of Asiatic Society. Now here it is mentioned as Ram's Bridge. So it was a very popular, and everybody mentioned it. It was very late. The attempts were made to another name as Adam's Bridge, and now people, some call it Adam's Bridge, some call it Ram's Bridge. So in 1835, 1862, the Gazetteer of Ramanathapuram mentioned about this bridge, and it also mentioned up to 1480 this bridge has served as a land bridge. And I was talking to some of my Sri Lankan friends, and they said that their fathers told that during their time it was easy. They were using this bridge to cross this from Sri Lanka to India. So they were swimming a little portion, or they were using a small boat, and then they were using this bridge, and they were using. So it have been a thoroughfare, means it had been used for thoroughfare, and definitely there are going to be numerous archaeological evidences for its use to the ages. Now just I will tell you that in 2016 we had submitted a project for financial assistance to ICHR. The moment it came in the news, many other people have become interested. They come out with their different findings. Not only the Indians, but even some Americans came out with the help of satellite imagery and with the help of what they had learned and heard here, that yes, they have come out with certain hypothetical dates. So everybody started going and working on that. I just want to show you some of the close-up pictures of these shoals so that you can have an idea. This is Rameswaram Island. This is stretched portion is called this is in between. These are a series of shoals which are of different shapes and size, and in between there are some gaps. You have another close-up view. So these are the area which are exposed above the water line, and these are the gap in between. So there are some are little deeper, and the depth is not more than 3 meter in any case. So the average depth is around 3 meter. This is a close-up, and you see these are of different shapes, and these shapes keep changing with the current and the flow of water. So they are also called flying islands or flying islets. These are Google images. So you can see these are the bars which are exposed. This portion, there are shallow area in between. So it is possible to do the coring on these areas which are exposed above the water. It is possible to do diving and underwater excavation in the areas which are covered under the water to find out the cultural sequence or stratigraphy of this area, so that this quest which is there, or this belief is there for thousands of years, can be proved ultimately that how this structure was constructed. These are the close-ups. You can see the exposed area. These are the sandy areas. The water is in between, and this is a little deeper area. You see this? You can also see the waves which are passing through it, and this due to the change in waves, their shape also get changed because their upper portions are the loose material, solid, it's a sandy material. So with the change in the current, now what we really need to do there, we do scientific investigation, as I mentioned, core sampling on the areas which are exposed. We need to do systematic archaeological exploration, for which we have a plans. We need to do bathymetric survey in great detail. Then once we identify these points, we have to do spot diving, collect the sample, and do the trial and change. Just I'll show to give you an idea that how we do underwater archaeology. This is what we did in Dwarika. So the survey boats can do investigations. We can understand the bathymetry, and then can conduct diving using the small boats going in the shallow water, and whatever features if we find underwater, we can investigate them, we can claim them, clean them, and can document them with the help of photography and drawings. And once this process is done, that mystery of this area and all the problems, issues, doubts will be removed once for all. Now this particularly I want to mention, you might be remembering when the Chinese Prime premier came, he was taken to Mahalipuram, and a huge rock there. This is declared by Government of India as a monument of national importance. Now, the point is, if this rock can be declared as monument of national importance, then why this structure, which is believed to be such an important historically, archaeologically, cannot be declared as monument of national importance? There is no reason that one can say that if that rock can qualify as monument of national importance, then RamSetu deserve it 1,000 times more than that. I stop with this.